What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Symphony podcast. Brooks Bash is joining us today to talk about just a bunch of different things, but thought we'd have a little roundtable discussion with the three of us around just career transitions, life, what the heck we're supposed to do with this short, little, precious existence that we have. And so, Brooks, I want to kick it over to you. Matthew, you're here as well, but give us a little intro on who you are, where you come from, what you believe, what you like to do.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me. Brooks Bash is the name. I don't know if they see the video, but it does say it on my shirt. This is probably just a podcast, though, so they can't see it. So I've just turned 30. I've been in the startup entrepreneurship space for my whole career, about 10 years now. Very passionate about sports, nutrition, fitness, wellness, adventure, just kind of anything outside and exploring. Is where I thrive, I would like to say, and I think I do. I think I'm right now in the middle of a chapter of my life where I think society and things are set up in a way where like everyone kind of seems like they know what they're supposed to be doing, and in reality not true. In reality, a lot of us have no idea what they're doing, and it's so easy to follow your passions or do what gets you excited. And it's so easy to say that and know that, but then also actually like do it and turn it into like a thing that you can pay bills with. They're like two very separate things. I'm right in the middle of trying to like figure that out, and through that, I've been on that journey for probably a few years now. I've had some pretty like terrible controlling and manipulative bosses that I was trapped under their spell for a while. And so through a lot of coaching and reflecting and a lot of just self-work, was able to realize that, break away from that, and now I'm kind of in this floating free fall of what the hell am I doing? So
heck yeah.
Which I think yeah. Oh, sorry, go for it.
No, dude, I just want to quickly say that it's awesome. I love that you're willing to jump on a podcast in a career transition, because we hear so many people who are like, yeah, I went through the career transition. I mean, dude, I'm in the same position right now. I'm not in the transition, but I know it's coming. You know, it's always coming for all of us. So I'm resonating so much with what you say, and I'm going to give you back the mic because I just cut you off. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries, dude. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's like, whether it's someone writing a book or whether it's someone... And on another podcast, just anywhere, like you always see like, yes, we did it, we're thriving, we're achieving it, and it's like, that's awesome, and it's cool to like aspire to do that, but also like, my wife showed me a quote this morning. It was like write the book you wish you had, and it's like, yeah, like I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that are going through the same thing. So I've been trying to produce some content around just me being vulnerable and showing that like, I don't have it figured out. I don't know what's going on, and that's okay. And that's kind of part of the journey.
It is interesting, and I feel like this is such an important conversation to be having too, just because you're right. Like I feel like the way that society portrays things is like, it's almost like a goal for people to portray this aura of like, oh, I have everything figured out. I'm doing, I'm cranking, I'm producing this super high quality work. Like I don't have any questions, like all this stuff. Like that seems to be like the quote unquote goal for what you aspire to be. Whereas the reality is when you start to talk to people, everyone is just kind of guessing and everybody is just kind of figuring it out. So like when you come to conversations from that place, it allows you to actually talk about what you're genuinely interested in and curious about. And it's like, yeah, okay, I am in this place right now. I don't really know what I'm doing, but these are the things that I'm curious about. I'm interested in these different avenues. Because then it allows people to have like a generative conversation about what's possible, and it opens up gateways for like collaboration instead of doing what I feel like oftentimes happens when people give off that facade of like, oh, we have everything figured out. It almost like it intimidates other people from asking them things because they feel like it's a stupid question, and B, it probably inhibits that person from asking questions themselves because they've convinced themselves that they're at like the top of their game, and there's no there's no other aspiration that's included in whatever they're trying to do. So I feel like, we talk about that a lot on this podcast of just like the beginner's mindset, and being able to humble yourself to this place of curiosity and questioning. So, yeah, I don't know. I think this is a really cool conversation to be having, and I feel like if we normalize this style of conversation, we'd probably actually see a lot more progressive growth from collections of people.
Yeah,
Well
absolutely.
said.
Yeah, I think that's how. I mean, Matt, you and I started working together is we were just like genuinely curious to learn what each other were up to. We like met for coffee, like went and started surfing, and then all of a sudden it was like, hey, I'm super into health and nutrition too, and you're like, oh wow, me too, no way, what are you working on? Oh, I'm working on this. It was just like kind of feeding off like each other, like you said, because we were in that position of like curiosity and just like just wanting to learn and just more learn and genuinely curious what the other was up to, and not like you said, like, oh yeah, I just IPO'd my company, or I just
Right.
did like
Well,
we were
right,
trying to
because
show off. It was just like,
exactly. And imagine like that conversation when we met up for coffee. What is that? Like 2 years ago at this point.
yeah,
Like if the way I feel like the way that I presented what we were working on allowed that entry point for you to be like, oh, like I could be involved in this, instead of hearing somebody talk about like, oh, I just IPO'd my company and now we have this like thriving business going on, blah blah blah. You'd kind of just be like, oh, that's great for that person, but like there's no real like opportunity or invitation for me to kind of like collaborate on this, just because it feels very closed off. Whereas I feel like this open curiosity and like honesty allows access points for other people to get involved, and I feel like that's exactly kind of what happened with us. And now it's been 2 awesome years of you like being a core member of the founding team of Verete, and yeah, I mean we've just been all three of us honestly have been learning throughout this process together, and it's really fun, and I feel like there's not very much ego within our core team, which I think helps us in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
What was it like working under manipulative, shitty bosses? Because I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and how you like what you learned from that, and how you got out of there. Yeah.
there's like different phases for sure. There's the first phase of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this super successful entrepreneur, XYZ has made this much money in his life. I can't believe he's letting me work for him. Like, I'll do anything. So it was like, I started as a driver, and then I was like assistant, and like literally just like whatever this guy would say, I would just jump, and it was just like so excited to feel like, because it almost feels like you're in the grind. You're like, yeah, this is what we're supposed to be doing, and go, and it's like he calls you at 9:30.
You want to pay your dues.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's 9:30 at night. You're like, yeah, whatever. I'll do it. To answer a phone call, I'll get that out real quick. I'll do whatever it takes. And so it's kind of in that phase of then, and that was probably for like, I mean, 3 years of that, and just like wasn't getting any recognition, wasn't getting any raises, was just staying the same, which was fine. It was, like you said, just earning the dues and just kind of making it happen. And then it kind of enters into this phase of, okay, like what's next, right? So then it turns into the conversation of, what's more I want. I'm eager to keep learning. I always wasn't really so much money for me. It was more of like, I want to keep growing. I don't want to sit still. I don't want to feel like I'm not continuing to grow. So when those moments of stillness would happen, that's where I started to get a little anxious. And look, he was really good of like, he would always have a side project or another business that he was starting or this. And so he would like, okay, now you can help me with not just my one business, but now 1 and 2. So then I'd be like, okay, great. And then I'd start back over, and then it would be like hit the plateau again, and then it'd be like, okay, we're doing this other business now. But okay, great. So then it's like now 3. So it's like, but then of course none of them really ever went anywhere, and none of them really succeeded, and it was just always the constant just like running on a treadmill, not going anywhere, feeling. And the promises of when this happens here, then you'll get this, and all we need to do is get this one deal through, and X will happen, just kind of on and on and on, and the equity here and this there, and it was just like constantly a trap of just like, I mean, the quicksand analogy is perfect, because it's like, well, I I've been here for now 6 years and put in 6 years of effort. So like, why would I leave and waste all of that, when I could just wait out another year and, X will happen. It was the trap.
That's like an abuse cycle too. I mean, that's like what you hear about with abusive relationships or parents. It's like show a little bit of love to like keep that spark alive, but then like neglect basically for months or however long, and then it's like, oh, one more flash of love that gives you that bit of hope, and then it's like gone all over again. And so, but I'd be curious, like what do you think sparked? Because I feel like this bigger transition for you is pretty recent, and that decision to really kind of make a jump was fairly recent. So I'd be curious to hear like what was the crucial turning point, or like the last straw that kind of made you be like, all right, it's time to do my thing.
Good question. Let me think for a second. I mean, that one, there was so many breadcrumbs with that one of like, and obviously now out of it, I look back and you're like, holy shit, like I should have done that years ago. And so there were some pretty big, like key pivotal moments that happened that just like kind of came to a moment where it was just like, I gotta go. And so, that I would say I just got married too. And so that kind of timed up right around where I left that one controlling job of like, look, I need to really start to like think about my family, not just me anymore. And this isn't working. And so I do credit my wife for like constantly being the, I mean, she's the leader. I'm just the follower. So she was telling me to quit that job for five of the 7 years. So I finally listened. But yeah, and so then it was like from that job I jumped to just whatever I could do to get away from that job, and that seemed like another flashy cool opportunity. Turned into like somewhat of a like bipolar boss situation, which just didn't work out either. So then like jumped from that to that, and then jumped to the next opportunity, and just I found myself sticking to these same patterns of like going to something that looks shiny and like these like almost like these quick payouts of like, okay, you can get in here and earn this type of money this quick. And I was drawn to that because I feel like I felt like I was behind and I had to catch up, where I had a lot of friends who were making really good money and, doing all the things that come with money, and I couldn't really ever keep up with that. And so I was constantly looking for these like, okay, get in here and, help this company raise money and get a big payday. Okay, I can get in here and do this. And so it's constantly on this cycle of honestly a quick paycheck, big paycheck is what I was looking for. And so finally, about 2 weeks ago, one of the gigs I was with laid me off because of budget cuts and whatever reasons. But finally I was just like, this is not working. Like it really struck me of like, these are things I don't really want to be doing and they're not working. So like, what am I doing? So yeah, that really sparked the idea. And once again, it was my wife in the background always talking to me about this and really encouraging me to really step into my own story and courage and share it and go from there. So that kind of was a long-winded response of what.
Really well said though, man, and appreciate you sharing that. One of the things I'll ask you about that I am constantly thinking about, Matthew and I talk about all the time, is you hear just follow your passions. Once you find the thing that you want to do that thing 100%, right? But what I've found in my life is that I start one thing and I have natural curiosity and passion that I bring to whatever I do. So I am passionate about it. But then after a bit, I find that, maybe it's not the end all be all and I want to branch out in a different direction, or I want to create more of a patchwork of activities. That's one of the things that I'm drawn to entrepreneurship about, because you can create your own job description in a way that you can't if you're following a carved out rutted path. Mm-hmm. So knowing that you're going into this next stage, starting to create more content, obviously you've done a ton of deep self-reflection to get to the point where you're at. How do you start to think about like bringing together different passions? And I know you're a very logical guy too. Clearly you're thinking about the the realities of the financial side as well. And I mean, all of us, in our later 20s, you turn in 30, like we're thinking, can we start to save money? Are we going to have kids and a family, and what's involved with that? Talk to me about how you're just starting to like bring it together and think about it, even though I know you won't necessarily have it figured out. None of us do today. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. I wish I had the answer to that, but I'm right in the thick of like kind of in the process of freaking out / just like following my intuition and trying to see where it takes me. So like, I think, yeah, I would love to get on here.
Why are you creating the content? What drew you into start creating the content? Because I find that to be one of the big differences between, whereas previously you were looking for something maybe you described as flashy or exciting,
Mm-hmm.
and now you found that doesn't work. So what is it about telling your story that you know, what drew you into that or triggered that?
For sure. I think when and I'm like, in my head I'm like my biggest enemy of self-doubt and like constantly putting myself down, and like my biggest roadblock is me, for sure. And so I feel like sometimes you're in your life and you think like, this is just my life and it's not worth sharing, or it's not, you know, it's not, I don't know, it's not as cool as you think it is. And I definitely am living that and thinking that. And so I would start to, for whatever reason, I started being more active on Instagram and like doing just stories and stuff like that. And the feedback I would get was like pretty remarkable, of like people kind of excited or like really encouraging, or like almost being like, wow, like how did you do that? Or like, that's really crazy. And it kind of opened up a reflection of like, wow, like I do some pretty like radical things that like normal people wouldn't really ever dream or think of doing. And whether that be through like fitness or wellness, or those are kind of my two like strong points of like constantly pushing and challenging myself. So then it kind of got me thinking like, wow, like this is worth sharing. And maybe this, through my story of pushing myself through these feats or these, you know, fitness or wellness challenges, or along with this, like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm figuring it out, and like a lot of people are in the same boat, it kind of morphed into the first video.
Yeah, the
I love
videos
it,
are really
dude.
well done too. I've been enjoying watching and following along. And then also just I'm excited. I feel like the way that we are and that we will continue to build Arete is to just, I mean, you already talked about it, like health and wellness and like physical and mental performance are definite curiosities of yours. And that's kind of like what we stand for within everything that we do in the Arete business. So it's like, I almost see Arete as a platform for all of us to be creating these titles and these job descriptions for ourselves that are basically aligned with the things that we like to do anyway. And so it's just kind of like a platform for you to be able to be yourself, and through being yourself, create a job description for yourself. And I think that's reflected in the content that you're kind of already making. But then another thing that I wanted to bring up too was that, and we've talked about this on the show before too, about just like doing things that are slightly outside of your comfort zone, or things that scare you a little bit. And I know that you recently went to an improv class, and that's something that I feel like a lot of people would just like shit their pants and be so afraid to get up there and participate in something like that. So I want to hear about the thought process leading up to that, of like like was that an uncomfortable thing for you to step into, and just kind of like why you wanted to do it in the first place, and then also how it went.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was extremely uncomfortable. I'm like a very introverted person, and that's like the opposite of being introverted. But yeah, I think part of this is leaning into things that I'm passionate about, so health and wellness, but then also really exploring things I haven't ever tried before. And like, just to like pull back the story before I answer that question, was doing some journaling and kind of came to this thought and conclusion of like, my childhood was like was pretty different, and I was raised in a military household, and so I lived in like 15 different states before I was 19 years old. So like, we were constantly moving, like every year and a half it was pick up, move, start over, pick up, move, start over, pick up, move, start over. So it wasn't quite a normal childhood. And so I was drawn to sports because sports was like a quick and easy way to like make friends, and that was kind of the recipe. And so I was reflecting of like I didn't really explore a whole lot outside of sports growing up, and it was really just stick to sports, you make friends. Okay, that was the recipe. Um, and there was obviously I was introverted and shy, so that was a whole layer of anxiety and other issues to go along with it. That aside, I didn't really ever, go to drama camp or didn't really explore. As a kid, you can really explore a lot of different things and really know like, oh, I like this, I don't like this. Oh, this is something to keep going, or this isn't something to. So by the time I got to college, I didn't really have that. So I kind of just stuck to what I knew, and that was sports, which I still love, but it just really didn't really give me a chance to really explore a lot of else. And so, yeah, I'd signed up for the improv class. I think that's why, is like I never really have explored acting or arts or anything along that side of things. And so just thought it would be a good exercise to like bring me out of my shell, really like for if it's improv, if it's acting, or if it's just business or life, like being able to like think really quick on your feet is a very valuable skill. And then the third point, which I didn't really realize until I started going to classes, but like just having just like the utmost confidence in everything you do. So for improv, if we were doing some exercises where you had to get up and just say like absolute gibberish, but you had to say it as if like you were
with conviction.
Yeah, well, like I think the exercise was like you were a marketing agency pitching airlines like their taglines, and you just had to say something made up, and it was, but you had to say it with just the most proudful conviction you could, and it was very hard. But then by the end, you're like, wow, if you can say anything with confidence, like you're good. Like people will just believe you, and then you'll believe yourself. So that was kind of what led me to it. It is still going. It's a very challenging and very nerve-wracking, but also like extremely fun. And like I haven't really felt that like energetic and buzzed and like forever. So yeah, it's been a really cool experience. I recommend everyone in the world should at least take like an intro class, because it would just help everybody.
Dude, real quick, can you say, welcome to the Symphony podcast, harmony for life, with some conviction?
Welcome to the Symphony podcast, harmony for life.
Wow.
Love it.
Pretty
We can
good.
put that in our, we'll try to, put a little intro together. So there you go.
Yeah, perfect.
Love it. No, I
thanks. That's good. You can sign off now.
I love the mindset to like put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. And before we go too far on, like I do want to talk more about that, but I do think your childhood was extremely unique because you moved 15 times. I can't even imagine how hard it is to like find roots when you literally can't plant them. Sounds like, yeah. And the way that you talk about sports, I think a lot of guys lean into sports in that same way, where it's a place where you can thrive regardless of whatever, regardless of how you look or whatever things you might be insecure about. But I also think there's an element of like just general social pressure to find out what you want to do with your life at such a young age. I remember being 16, 17 years old, and I would be like working out at the Bellevue Club, or I would be in high school, literally. People are asking, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go to college? What do you want to study? Instead of asking, like, what are you passionate about? And where are the people making money, creating, and innovating in that space? And how can you move in that direction? And I basically wasn't aware that you could follow your passion professionally until I was 23 years old. And that's like not really, it's really not my fault. This is the cultural narrative that was just blasted at me everywhere, including from my loving parents, supportive and loving parents who just want the best for me, even still to this day, when I tell my mom that, hey, I know that there's a huge new chapter in my life coming here that's going to involve taking risk, really putting myself out there, and I'm trying to get ready to embrace that. And my mom's like, well, Kyle, like there's a recession coming and like all this stuff. And I'm like, Mom, I hear you, but I need you to just have a less of a scarcity mindset and be more like, let's fucking go, you know, because this life is so short. And at the end, like Steve Jobs said it best. There's a quote where he says, like, you're already naked. You might as well just, you know, you have nothing to lose, essentially. So,
Dude, you talking about this too reminds me of the very first time we ever connected to run a podcast. I talked about that quote that I still don't even remember where it's from, but that the hero and the coward feel the same things. And it's like about how you respond to those feelings that makes the ultimate difference. And I feel like this is a perfect like example of a time to bring up something like that. It's like, are you like, will you let those feelings of insecurity, self-doubt, just, you know, worry about how things will play out stop you from attempting the things that you really want to do? Or do you quiet those voices and just still go for it anyway? And because even if you just still go for it, you end up learning something. Like, that's inevitable, and that is also valuable. Whereas if you only sit back and worry and decide not to do something, the only thing you're left with is definitely the regret of not trying something, which is, in my mind, way worse to live with than having tried and gained something along the path of just like attempting it.
Yeah. If you go for it,
we get in our own way so much, man. Yeah, go ahead, Brooks.
I was gonna say, if you go for it and it works, great. You learn something. If you go for it and it doesn't, great. You learn something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, it's not gonna work. You know, we're so young. Like, it's 9 times out of 10 small businesses fail. You know, so like, or if you, like, it's gonna take, as Matthew can speak on and has, like, it takes a lot of effort over a long period of time. There is no like, start a company, get venture capital funding, raise 50 million, turn it into 150 million in 2 years, and just cash out. That doesn't exist.
But then once you take the step, like, and start doing something and take that risk, like, it doesn't ever feel like it's a failure. It just feels like it's another piece of that journey that you kind of decided to set out on, if that makes sense. I don't know. And then it just becomes easier to kind of continue to make that decision of taking the road less traveled or like the riskier route or whatever, once you just get yourself to do it in the first place. Like, I even remember when Roddy and I were talking about starting Shreddables, like, the analogy that he used was that you just have to jump into the pool. Like, you can spend all this time like up on the diving board, like looking and being nervous and like wondering if you have the skills or the capabilities to do what you're wanting to do, or you just fucking jump and you learn everything that you're going to need to know in the action of just taking that leap and moving forward. And then, you know, you reassess once you take that first step, and then you just like keep moving forward. So yeah, I don't know, I love it. But also, Brooks, so are you on day 4 now of posting the reel on Instagram?
Yeah, today's day 5.
Day 5. Wow.
Yes.
Is it a 30-day plan?
The goal is to do it for a month and then reevaluate. So sure, 30
Nice.
30 days.
Do you have a full schedule, or are you just kind of winging it day by day?
So far it's been winging. This morning I did a bunch of kind of planning and scripting out, and so that has a little bit more legs to it. But yeah, just kind of figuring it out as we go.
I love it.
It's cool because it's not really I didn't do it to like create this, like, it's actually stuff I'm doing, so it's not like I'm just like doing it to make a TikTok following or whatever. It's just like I'm actually doing these things, so it's just like as I do things and learn and have things to share, that's kind of what it will become. And that's kind of how it started. I was like reflecting of like what I was doing each day, and when I was laid off from my job, I was like leaning really heavy into fitness and these different outlets that I have. And then I was like, wow, this is something that I could share and my passion with people and see if it sticks. So that's kind of how it started, of the idea of just like sharing what I'm up to and how I'm using these things to overcome my stuckness, and then that's kind of why we're here.
Yeah.
I resonated so much with that. Just the concept of getting unstuck and feeling like you need to be catching up. Like, I feel that those two concepts for me resonated so much, and that was kind of like what the core of this conversation has been, is like, how do you battle those pressures, like knowing at the end of the day, like, I mean, dude, I'm turning 28 soon, and I'm like trying to constantly, like, not constantly, but every year, you start to get into your upper 20s. You're now 30. Like, looking back, I don't know. There's just, the more time passes, the more precious time is. And so your decisions on how you spend that time matter so much. And we can start to get super freak the fuck out about how we spend that time. Like, I get in my own head about, like, dude, I'll literally get in my own head about, should I spend 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there? I'm trying desperately. Actually, I don't like to say I'm trying desperately. I'm trying to let it flow more into a life where I operate at a high level, but I'm not ever, like, stressed about it. And so how are you, Brooks, like, keeping yourself in a positive mindset? I don't know if this is a good question to ask, but that was just like two things that I was thinking about in terms of, like, the pressures we face as, like, people, or, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's
Fuck it.
a lot of it's about perspective, and, like, trust me, that, like, I'm on day 4, and, like, 2 of the 4 days I've been, like, extremely anxious and very stressed, and, like, didn't want to post, and, like, this is stupid, and, like, deleted stuff, like, so it's like it's definitely there, and it's definitely not just, like, the finished product. So that's point 1. And then 2, it's just all about perspective of, like, you can look at things that have happened in your past of, like, man, this sucked, I had to go through this, for example, moving a lot, and I used to look at it as, like, that's why I can't keep a job, because I'm so used to change, and that's why I bounce around so much from this job to that job, and, like, I was kind of looking at it through that lens of, like, woe is me, and I'm an outcome of my past, where and I've gone to a lot of, like, conferences, and I've worked with, like, a coach that really, and I suggest everyone do some sort of that, where it's like you really just can talk through stuff. And I mean, look, every, like, great athlete has a coach that helps them get to where they want to go, and so, like, as a person, you want to get places too. Like, you need a coach to help guide you to those places. So that's just a side tangent. But through all that work, it really helped me change my perspective of, like, look, I did go through these things, and that has made me who I am today, so that I can jump into new situations, and instead of, out of a bad angle, but it's out of a positive angle of, like, I can be really good in new situations. I can meet people really easy and really connect with them. It's made me extremely loyal. Like, the relationships I do have, I value so much, because, I just didn't used to have them. So now having them, they're so much stronger and so much more impactful than just, like, a casual friend that you text, every other month. So I think it's all about perspective, just to answer your question and, like, this construct of time and making it this much money by this much time and having a house and it's like, it's all bullshit. It's all made up, and it's, I think once you can be free of that, it just frees everything. I just turned 30. I, like, physically never felt stronger. I just got married. I've never been, like, happier and more, like, connected to somebody. And so another final piece too is, like, I was actually talking to my dad, which is hilarious, because I, never would have thought to have, like, a chat with my dad like this, because he's military, very, Dad, if you're listening, I love you. Just, like, very, by the book, and, like, I don't even know how to say it, but just, like, traditional route. And so I was saying, Dad, I don't feel very successful. And he was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. I just, like, have never been able to fix my career and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, yeah, Brooksy, that's, like, 1 out of, like, 10 different, like, things to measure. It's like, okay, career, you're working on it. You have experience. Like, that's great. But, like, you just got married to your best friend. Like, you had an incredible wedding where all your friends and family were there. Like, you have this friend group of, like, really good intentional friends. You are healthy. You're, like, happy. You have a roof over your, like, there's so many other factors where I think career can quickly go to the top, and that's the easiest to measure. But it's just looking at the full picture of, like, okay, so yeah, this one part is something I need to work on, but how blessed am I to have, all these other ones under control. And and so maybe it's like I've used my last 10 years to really focus on my relationship with my wife, and, like, if that's all I got out of it, then that's like an amazing thing that I got out of it. And I can work on career the next, 60 years.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. I really, really well said. And I think it's so true, too. I mean, comparison is the thief of joy, right? And it's just never a clear picture, like exactly what you're talking about. It's like if you feel behind because you're looking at your buddy who's working a finance job and he's working 80 to 100 hours a week, but he's taking home like $1 million a year, and you're sitting there like, oh my God, he's so much further ahead than me. But it's like, in what it's like you don't know, like all you can think about is yourself, and like exactly what you said, the other things you have going on in your life, and like the balanced approach to what a fulfilled life looks like. And that definitely does not only include career and the amount of money that's in your bank account. So I think that's a really important point to take away. um, One question I have is, just because I know from experience and just from like kind of watching you go through this whole process recently, it takes a lot of self-reflection and just like deep thinking and kind of strategizing and observations of patterns within your life, and forward looking to what you want for your life, which all of that requires a ton of thinking and introspection. And so my question is, when do you feel like your thoughts, when do you think you do your best thinking, I guess is the question. Like, when do you feel like like, what are the activities that bring you the most clarity of mind? And like, how do you create time for those within your day-to-day life?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, it's definitely like movement. So if I'm out on a run, like I rarely will listen to music. Or that's not true. I actually will listen to podcasts while I run, but then not actually even listen to the podcasts for whatever reason. Like that's when I like get thinking the most, which is super random. Just have it on in the background. That's always a huge one for me. It almost turns the repetition of running. It is very meditative to me, and you have to focus on right in front of you, and you can't really be getting too far ahead of yourself. Swimming, I went swimming yesterday, and like had to get out of the pool like 3 different times to like write something down, because I was like, that's a great idea. That's probably even better than running, because that's just like you're so zoned out, you can't hear anything. You're like, it's something that where you're like challenging yourself enough, whether it's like breathing with swimming or surfing, where you have to really focus on something so that your mind can get lost in just thinking, I think is the best recipe for me.
I love it. We talk often about creating space to create, like a lot of the creative process. Matthew, didn't you just mention Stephen Pressfield, or we were talking about it, the war of art?
Yes.
The concept is that like art is a war, and to create it, like it's a battle essentially. And a lot of that battle for myself and for many others is just getting into the position where you can do the thing itself. And yeah, that's been a constant challenge. I know we were talking about that like 6 months ago, like creating the space to create. So like if you, like for this podcast, if we want to have interesting ideas and be prepared, like you just have to take the time to do that. And if you're disciplined about that, it just translates directly to a better episode. You have to go out and experience things. So yeah, I think I would encourage you, dude, just keep writing those ideas down, because your brain is probably like, you're basically like gonna allow your brain to like open up in ways that maybe it was constrained before, with a lot of time and attention going.
And I feel like a lot of people going through a period of time like this would have a lot of guilt around doing the things that are probably the best things that they should be doing for themselves, because they feel like they should be behind a computer, quote unquote, working, like figuring out what the next step is. And so, whereas I think the approach that you're taking, and the most valuable approach in my mind, is like, this is the time that you really should double down on the things that you love to do, the things that spark creativity and inspiration in your mind, because this is like a pivotal moment in your life of like transition, and there's no better time to have like a clear and creative mind during a process than like it is at that point in your life. So it's just kind of an interesting theme of just kind of rethinking the way that we work, and like kind of getting away from the idea that work can only be done when you're sitting behind a laptop or you're at an office or you're with your coworkers, because I think there is a way to integrate, like, because your mind is constantly going to be working through whatever topic or whatever problem you're working through, whether it's work, relationship, life, like whatever. And so it's like, can you do the activities that allow you to think through those things the most clearly? And yeah, ultimately, I think that's probably the most productive way to work, even though a lot of people would look at that and be like, he's never actually even working. But yeah, I don't know. It's a cool balance to find.
Totally. Or even yourself, like I was doing stuff and I was feeling the same way. I was like, shoot, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be on my computer. I should be doing this. I should be making calls. But in reality, it's like the things I were doing, it's like I would be going on a run with somebody very specific, because that person, is like also very passionate and like could open a door here or do that. So it's like, it's almost like a lunch. It's like a business lunch, but just like you're not doing it at a restaurant. You're doing it on a trail or on a different place.
Right.
So it's still just connecting with someone. And if it doesn't lead anywhere, like if it's just a great friend or connection, that's also huge. But you never know where it could go.
Yeah. Kyle,
I think that's a great perspective. Yeah.
You had a great take on that exact comment, or that exact concept a few months back, when you were talking about like leisure, like how do we spend our leisure time? Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, man. So I was just thinking about this yesterday. I haven't really had an actual vacation since I started as a full-time employee at Creative Live, but I have taken a week off here and a week off there to go work on, like, for example, Matthew introduced me to his old college roommate, David Patty, who's a filmmaker. I went down to California and filmed for a week in the mountains in California. So like taking my leisure time and my vacation time and doing something I'm passionate about, which is backpacking, hiking, creating, filming, but having it be part of my professional portfolio, like being able to say I worked with them. They popped my IMDb cherry. I actually had it popped before because I worked on another documentary film, but I had such a horrific experience with the director, who ended up being quite literally the worst human that I've ever come in contact with personally. So when you were talking about your bad boss, I was like getting like trauma, like PTSD over here. But yeah, that's just like a thing that I always say is like, if you can bring together passion and your leisure time and have it be building in a professional direction, that's one of the reasons why I like to pick up the camera in the first place, because I could go out to the mountains and make a film with my friends and put it on my YouTube channel and be learning skills and be telling stories and connecting with people. And the amount of doors that it has opened, even just hosting a podcast, man. Mm-hmm. Hosting a podcast, I've had 70 something adventure creators, and we've done 100 almost of these Symphony podcasts. We've had the number of like awesome conversations we've had that never would have happened had we just been like, oh, we have to like be always, making money or spending our time really. I don't know. I just love I just always love doing things that bring together passion and leisure. So thanks for teeing me up for that one.
Of course. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, we all want to like inspire and help others, and so if like me documenting my journey like inspires one person to leave their dead end soul-sucking job and go follow their passion, like, then that's amazing. And that's kind of the real reason that I'm at least sharing it outwardly what I'm doing, is just to kind of help inspire others.
And that's like a direct impact too, and like I feel like we felt similar about that, especially as we were getting going with Symphony, and we're getting like, a handful of listens every single week and like maybe a few likes on Instagram. And like, if you just looked at it from that perspective, you'd be like, oh, this show is nothing. It like doesn't really reach anybody. But then it's just like, all it took was one person reaching out to me like once a month or whatever, and being like, hey, I really resonated with this episode. It changed the way I thought about this, and then I went and did this, and it's made my life better. And it's like, that's impact, and that's exactly 100%. What you're doing with what you're starting now. And it's just like that, like, don't underestimate that also. Just like that direct impact that you can have on, even if it's one person, like that's a big deal. And I don't know. I think that type of work is extremely important.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're getting some of that fuel right now, Brooks, and yeah, it's awesome. I literally still remember my friend's younger brother. I did a podcast, my first ever podcast. It wasn't even part of like a show. I just had a website and I wanted to do a podcast. So two of my buddies, we talked about meditation because we were like, interested in it. And one of my buddy's younger brothers started a meditation practice after that, listening to that episode, and he reached out to me and he was like, hey man, this like meditation thing has been game changing for me. It's helped me like taper down on my anxiety. And I was like, those little like breadcrumbs in your analogy there, just like it'll fire you up for months. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
And even it's a beautiful thing. That's the power of storytelling. Like you can really shape somebody's heart or mind. Yeah, man. That's why one of the things I love about podcasts is that you can just press record and who knows, there could be something created so beautiful just out of this conversation. There's been, some stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You mentioned like being creatively locked, and I wrote a note to like something I want to talk about of like, I was feeling very locked and like I didn't really, ideas and things weren't really flowing that well. And so there's an exercise that's called the morning pages. I don't know if y'all have heard of it. It's from a book called The Artist's Way. And so I started that like 3 months ago or so. Actually, I started 5 months ago, stopped for a few months. But basically, for anyone who doesn't know what it is, it's from a book called The Artist's Way. And essentially, you get out a notebook and every morning you write 3 pages of journaling. And there's no prompts, there's nothing. It doesn't even matter what you say. Like, you're not even supposed to go back and reread it. It's just like barf out whatever comes to your mind and whatever it is. So it's like you could just say like, I don't know what to be saying. Oh yeah, by the way, I should call this person, just like whatever. And you have to fill 3 pages. That simple exercise that, like you said, someone mentioned, I can't remember where, has been like life-changing. Like it has like opened me up in a way that like ideas will just like, you hit the stream of consciousness like in the middle of a sentence and just can like fill like 10 pages of journaling and thoughts and like strategy or whatever it may be. It just like absolutely flows through you. I mean, that's kind of what helped me come to the conclusion that I should quit my job of like just getting it out, and instead of just keeping it locked inside of you, it's just like let it go. So I mean, that's helped quit the job. It helped me like write my wedding vows. It helped me like come up with the concept of like this channel I'm making, and just it's crazy how many like just like bits of things that come out of it. So that
there
was
is something so powerful about just like getting it physically into the world on paper. Like I don't remember who said it, and I've referenced it on the show before too, but some guy was talking about his own journaling practice and said that everything that he wrote about in his journal in his 20s came true in his 30s, and everything he wrote about in his journal in his 30s came true in his 40s. So it's like there is really something to that. It's like it almost expedites the process of manifestation when you just like get it out physically into the world and onto paper. And it just allows you to kind of track how your brain is moving through these different thoughts and just even thinking about the circumstances of your own life. And it allows you to see that and then keep kind of track of it, not only just in your head, but on a physical piece of paper, which allows you to think through things and plan out your next step a lot better, instead of just trying to keep it all up in your head just because it gets jumbled, and it's like it's hard to keep track of like what's actually going on up there because it's always cluttered with like 1,000 other different fleeting thoughts. Whereas like it's kind of that process of like selecting the thoughts that should go onto that notebook, instead of just always trying to find the important ones in the sea of like constantly changing fleeting thoughts that are like, all over the place as well. So that's cool.
And then that kind of goes right into the next thing that I was going to say of like, actually writing down your goals is like so important. Like first 10 years of my career, I felt like I wasn't achieving things or doing things. And my coach was like, but what are your goals? And I'm like, I don't know, like make money. So it's like, how on earth could you like compare what you're doing to what you're trying to achieve if you don't set what you're trying to achieve? Like if you're going to run a marathon, like the goal is run a marathon. So you train and do stuff to lead up to that marathon. You did it, you completed your goal, great. If you're just working, if you're just doing stuff to do stuff, it's like, how could you possibly know if you're going to hit what you're trying to do, to let you, know that you've been successful and you've accomplished what you're out to do. So actually sitting down and actually putting out your goals of like, this is what I want to do, like whatever it may be. For me, it's like I want to have a career and lifestyle where I can like be around my kids as much as I can. And that's like my probably number one goal. And yeah, so it's like, okay, now that's the goal. Great. What I need to work backwards. So, okay, then I need to have a job that I can, to kind of do from anywhere. Don't have to be in an office, don't have to travel a lot. Okay, great. Need someone to have a kid with. Okay, wife. Okay, great. Worked on that. So it's like, it's all the different pieces that lead up to the goal, where if I didn't have that goal, then what am I doing? So I think that's been a huge help, at least mentally, to know if I'm at least, whether or not be succeeding, but like getting closer to what I was out to do, was actually just setting what that goal was. And there can be like the month goal, like today's July 1. I set like goals for the month of July, not easy, but like short-term goals. But then those grow into larger and larger goals. So that's like a huge thing that I've kind of been working through, of really setting those out and setting on paper, like you said.
Yeah, I'm big on trajectory too. And I think having those goals allows you to have a more clear idea of what that looks like, just because you kind of talked about it too, like working backwards. Once you have the big goal, you can kind of determine the different activities that fall under that, and like what are the activities that can push you in the direction of what that eventual goal is. Because then it's like, if you have a day where you're feeling, super unmotivated, or you don't really like know how you should move forward, you can just like pull one of those activities, and just like, whether it might be just like it might be fitness, it might just be, okay, I know that I need to take care of myself and my body so that I can be the most level-headed thinking towards, my goals for this year or whatever. And so it's just, I don't know. And then it allows you to take inventory of your day-to-day activities. And it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I didn't hit all of my single goals for this day, but at least I did something to like continue the forward momentum toward this eventual goal that I'm working towards. So I don't know, I'm all for it. I think having stuff down on paper helps keep you accountable, but also just somehow makes it easier to get it done. I don't know, like I find even the night before, if I write out what I need to do the next day, I end up getting it done before like 10 a.m. And then I'm like, whoa, I have the whole... Whereas if I don't, and I'm just kind of like, oh, what do I have to do today? Like, I guess I could do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I end up doing like a little bit of a lot of different things, which basically equates to nothing. So I don't know. There's really something to that.
Yeah, that's totally the skill that I'm really trying to hone in on, is being able to always be doing the thing that's moving the needle the most. Like, it's very easy to just get into like the task that is repetitive and feels good, how to do it, and kind of like put off the like thing that that's going to be a little painful. Oh, I got to send that email that's going to require some thought or whatever. Jump in, do that thing that sucks first. And then one of the things that's been big unlock for me is just aligning how, like, where my brain state is at with the actions that I'm doing. And so then I have later time in the day when I can do the plug and chug stuff. So not like burning all my creative, positive, energy on stuff that's not necessarily moving the ball that much.
Yeah. I love it.
Well, I got to jump on another call here, and we're going to walk through some Asana project workflow stuff, Matthew, with my editor, Janice. So, yeah, it should be fun. Brooks, again, dude, thank you so much for coming on the show.
For sure.
Definitely, this is not the last, and this is the first time you've had a podcast. You're very well-spoken, dude. I love hearing your story, man, and looking forward to more content. Where can we get connected to you? What's your you're on? So you say you're on TikTok, dude, putting your info in China and selling your soul to the CCP?
That's right.
I'm an open book. I want everyone to learn from me, So just kidding. I'm on.
But you're on Instagram and
TikTok, at Brooks Bash for both of them, and just like everyone seems like they got it figured out. No one's got it figured out. And just everyone, if you're in a position of doing what we're doing, like, we're very blessed, we're healthy, we have like a lot of things that a lot of people don't have. So at the end of the day, just gratitude is the best, and help as many people as you can is the recipe.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right, Matthew, you got any final words?
Just echoing everything that's already been said. And thank you, Brooks, for coming on the show. This was a fun conversation.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. And I just stepped on your toes there, Brooks. But
No worries.
thank you for coming on the show. And if you want to support the podcast, you can do that by going to areteadaptogens.com. Promo code Symphony will get you a little 20% off at checkout. Try out some of the products that we, live and breathe and have improved our lives. Root Strength, Stroomy, to be, and there's some more stuff coming soon. So, all right, peace.
See you. Peace.